Have you ever tried living in the exact middle, where you are not high enough in the sky to fly, yet not deep enough on the ground to walk? This is the trap of the 6 to 7 trend, being hopelessly stuck in a fatal gray zone, where every choice seems right, and every decision feels destructive. Kareem stood in the middle of his luxurious office, staring at two contracts lying on the desk before him. For 8 years, he had been waking up at 6 in the morning, putting on his suffocating suit, and sitting behind his elegant desk in that bustling city. Anyone who saw him would say he had the world in his hands. A skyrocketing salary, continuous promotions, and a future everyone deemed secure. But to him, it was a false security that felt like a golden cage. Meanwhile, his phone rang. It was his childhood friend, Tariq, speaking in an enthusiastic tone from their hometown. Tariq was telling him that the land was ready. The equipment they had dreamed of to open their own project had arrived at the port, and the passion they had so often wept for was waiting for his final signature on the resignation paper. Kareem fell into a long silence. He could see the resignation letter in front of him, and on the other hand, the company's renewal contract with a massive salary increase. When Tariq asked him, "Are you going to sign? Or are you still standing in the middle?" Kareem couldn't find an answer. He raised his hand instinctively, tilting his palms up and down as if weighing the air, and said with bitter irony, "The situation is 6 to 7, my friend. Half here, half there." Kareem would shake his hand in the air whenever anyone asked him, acting as if he owned all the time in the world. But the truth was, he was terrified. Terrified of losing security, and terrified of the death of his passion. He looked at his hand, and remembered how people laughed in internet videos while doing this movement to express their simple daily hesitation, but he wasn't laughing. To him, this gesture was the embodiment of his torn soul, a soul standing between two worlds, afraid to jump and afraid to stay. Weeks passed, and Kareem made no decision. He went to work like a programmed machine and returned to the shattered pieces of his dream at night. He did not sign the company contract, nor did he send the resignation papers to his friend. He thought that standing in the middle would protect him from making a mistake, completely unaware that the middle is the worst place where courage can die. In the middle of a dark night, he was awakened by the relentless ringing of his phone. It was his mother on the other end, weeping and trembling. She told him that his friend Tariq had been in a horrific car accident while returning from the port after completing the equipment procedures all by himself. He was now in the intensive care unit in critical condition. Before losing consciousness, Tariq had said, "Tell Kareem not to wait for me on the edge." The pen fell from Kareem's hand, and he felt completely paralyzed. He had failed his friend and left him alone halfway because he was a coward, because he was too busy weighing his damn gray scale. That night, Kareem did not sleep. He walked out into the streets under the heavy rain without an umbrella, looking at his reflection in the shop windows and feeling utter disgust with himself. He saw a man with no features, a man who had lost the security of his soul and gained nothing from the security of the world. He screamed in the middle of the empty street with a voice filled with agony. "I am sick of standing between two worlds. I am not grateful for the safety of the job, nor am I brave enough to follow my dream. Living in this gray area is the real death, and it is far worse than failure itself. Sometimes, we need a harsh slap from life to wake us from the coma of hesitation." The next morning, Kareem did not head to his office. Instead, he went straight to the airport and booked the first flight back to his homeland. He wrote his resignation letter on the plane and sent it without looking back. When he arrived at the hospital, he sat beside Tariq's bed, held his trembling hand, and wept like he had never wept before. He said to him in a warm, hopeful voice filled with tears, "Open your eyes, my friend. I am here. I have stepped off the edge, and I am no longer that 6 to 7 person. I tore up their contracts and came to hold your hand so we can build our dream together." Tariq opened his eyes slowly, smiled weakly, and whispered, "I knew you wouldn't stay standing between two worlds forever." A year after that accident, Kareem was no longer wearing that suffocating suit. He was standing in his own kitchen, surrounded by the scent of fresh bread and the laughter of customers, with Tarek beside him, fully recovered, leading the most successful project in the region together. Kareem turned to the corner of the room, looked at himself in the mirror, and spoke as if addressing every hesitant soul out there. If you are going through that exact moment in your life, if you are shaking your hands hesitantly in the 6 to 7 trend and smiling, remember me. Do not prolong your stay on the edge. Hesitation is good for a single night, but living in the middle drains your lifetime away. Take a deep breath, choose one ground, plant your roots in it, and know that the most beautiful thing about the edge is jumping off it toward your choice, so the hesitation can end and life can begin.